So we don't always know where the next big idea is going to come from. I was just reading about viruses in the news, and there was a discovery that completely flipped the field on its head. And what I loved was what the scientists said. They said, this started with a really stupid idea. And I followed it for 7 years, and now we're changing how we understand viruses. If you think about the invention of the microwave that's in most of your kitchens, it started as scientists playing around with radioactivity, and one had a chocolate bar in their front pocket, and it melted. Penicillin, the intent was to do something great, and then they went on vacation and left their petri dishes in the sink. When they came back, what was growing it was the beginning of a solution. So I wanted to celebrate that human ingenuity, that going for it, that taking a risk. Some people call it thinking outside the box. But what it really is that unpredictability of humanity to hit a bullseye they really shouldn't be able to hit, but it happens. My name is Tito Jankowski. I'm the co-founder of Air Miners, which is an index of startup companies that are removing and mining carbon from the air. And I'm also the co-founder of Impossible Labs, where we're working on making consumer products using direct air captured carbon. So I'm going to share 3 moonshots with you today. And these are ideas and experiments in pulling gigatons of carbon dioxide from the air. As you've heard, humanity emits about 40 gigatons of carbon dioxide from the air. So when you talk about 1 gigaton, you're talking about multiple percentages of each year's emissions. So the 3 moonshots, one is storage underground, one is in the ocean, and the other is using biotechnology. I want to start with this calculation from Klaus Lackner, who's known as the godfather of direct air capture. And he emailed me this great, beautiful calculation, which is, he says, as a windmill in an afternoon makes about $300 of electricity from the wind that's flowing over that windmill. But if instead you took the carbon dioxide from that air that flows over the windmill, there's $21,000 of carbon dioxide in that air. So you're talking about real potential there. So the first moonshot is to do with underground storage. So imagine 60% of the Earth's crust was turned into a carbon vault. 60% of the crust is made of basalt, which is highly reactive with carbon dioxide. Basically, the carbon dioxide fuses with the rock and just becomes part of the rock itself. So it's not going to leak out. If that worked, there's a ton of basalt. And it could be potentially a reservoir for gigatons, tens of gigatons, maybe even hundreds of gigatons of carbon dioxide right here. The challenge is we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to inject carbon and then make sure that it doesn't just leak right back out. Carbon dioxide is invisible. It's in this room. It's whenever you walk to the train, you're walking through carbon dioxide. It's invisible. We don't know if it just leaks out. So an academic group got together with the University of Iceland, University of Columbia, and this is a project called CarbFix based in Iceland. And they calculated the absorption rates for different minerals, for 18 minerals, pulling carbon dioxide out of the air. And what they found was interesting. What they found was exciting. They made a scientific publication about it. They published this data on open source on GitHub, so anybody can download it. And then they built a pilot facility. And so they injected 200 tons of carbon dioxide gas underground. And they found that in only 2 years, 95% of that gas was absorbed underground. So the opportunity here is to take this open source technology that CarbFix has offered. They haven't patented it. They've simply published, and posted stuff to GitHub. It's there. It's waiting for someone to figure out. Maybe that means helping landowners understand how to turn the ground underneath their feet into carbon vaults and to commercialize that. So that was the first moonshot idea. The second one is in the ocean. So what if the Earth's oceans could be used for carbon storage? Right now, 10 gigatons of carbon dioxide is absorbed naturally into the oceans every year. What if we could double that? What if we could triple that? We'd have a way to remove tens of gigatons of carbon dioxide directly from the air. Do we have the technologies that we can immerse in water and separate out carbon dioxide? Carbon is more concentrated per volume in ocean water by about 140 times. That means that there's a lot more raw material per volume to work with. So the opportunity that the team at Google X saw was, can we pull membrane technology, can we connect it to water desalination plants, and can we build a system that pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and turns into fuels? So this Google X team went for it, and they built two systems, one that would remove carbon from ocean water and make fuels, and the other that would turn it into carbonate rocks that they could bury. So the carbonate rocks one, they did all the calculations, and what they found was they could remove carbon dioxide for about $100 or $300 a ton. There's not really an economic case for that. So then they worked on the fuel angle instead. What they found was they could make fuel for $15 a gallon. Now that's exciting from a scientific standpoint, but that's more than 5 times what we pay at the tank. So instead, Google X published all their research. They published it last year in a scientific journal, and then they shut the project down. What they said was, we need to connect the rising cost of fuel with the falling cost of membrane technologies, and somebody is going to solve that problem someday, but not right now. So the opportunity here is, if you're following that area of technology, if you can solve this membrane problem, then you can dig into what Google X has created. You can potentially license their technology or just be creatively inspired by their scientific publications. And you can go after this and create something new. So the last example is synthetic biology. So what if synthetic biology and photosynthesis could be this carbon moonshot? Plants are great at pulling carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but only 5% of the energy that a plant gets from the sun goes towards carbon storage. The rest goes towards growing leaves, making fruit, keeping the plant alive. What if we could just cut out that 5% piece? Would we get a 20x improvement in the ability of plants to grab onto carbon dioxide? So you might be thinking that sounds like algae, right? Algae don't have leaves, they're not worried about making fruit, but algae still have plenty of overhead, even just in keeping the cell alive. What if we could just take out the enzyme that can grab onto carbon dioxide? One of them is called Rubisco. What if we could just pull that out and make a big vat of that? Y Combinator has a great article right up on this, on their carbon solutions page, where you can learn more details. What they modeled was, could we make bioreactors that each remove about 30 kilograms of carbon dioxide every day? The challenge with this is enzymes aren't magic. They need energy. They don't just pull carbon and process it and do this all day long. So if you did just have that vat of enzymes, it would stop working really quickly. That's where cell-free synthetic biology comes in. Cell-free synthetic biology is around, can we take that enzyme and just the bare minimum of other functional pieces to get this to work? Because if we start to add it back in the way that we know how to do, which is to add it into algae or add it into plants, then you get back all this overhead that we don't need. The Y Combinator article was great. It talked about what if these ended up in homes, in industrial places, and here is what if they end up in the oceans, these kind of like artificial cells that were filled with enzymes. So the opportunity here is for biologists, biohackers, people who are interested in synthetic biology to say, hey, let's bring this technology that's otherwise not talking about carbon removal. How do we intersect that and start to make progress on this? But moonshots can be frustrating. Moonshots can seem like a complete waste of money. They can seem to crowd out ideas that would make stepwise progress. Moonshots can seem like a distraction at a time when we really need solutions. So why bother following moonshots? Why bother supporting moonshots? Because moonshots matter. Moonshots inspire us. When we see a team from Google X of software engineers and hardware engineers going out and mucking around in the ocean, they have no business doing that, trying to make fuels out of the ocean. But the power of that potential inspires us, whether we're trying to remove gigatons and dreaming about moonshots, or we're trying to just remove a single gram of carbon ourselves. Moonshots inspire us even when they explode on a launch pad, as they often do. It blows into a million pieces, and you can take those pieces and commercialize and try again, and take cell-free synthetic biology, or take these ocean storage solutions or underground storage solutions. A lot of this is open source. These patents are either not patented, or they're interested in connecting their patents to somebody else who's taking it a step further. So I encourage you all to learn more about these topics. I'm fascinated by it. I have a newsletter where I send out an email to about 400 people every week. And so if you'd love to join in that adventure, this is the link, bit.ly impact Tito. And thank you all for being here, and thank you to our organizers. They're really partners in making this a success. If you get the chance to work with them, I highly encourage that you take it. They're really great to work with. Thank you.